It's one of the most amazing prison escape stories ever told. 3 men, a maximum security island prison, and a bold plan that beat impossible odds. Right away, everything turns upside down. These prisoners had vanished. How did these men escape from this top-security prison? For more than 50 years, nobody knew what happened to them. But now, after 55 years, could we finally learn the truth? They crawled from their cells, made it to the roof, and disappeared into San Francisco Bay. And you have to admit, they beat the system. Fresh evidence has come to light, and it might finally solve this unsolved mystery. Let's jump in. Can you really escape from Alcatraz? For many years, people thought escaping from Alcatraz couldn't be done. Think about it. A high-security prison on a rocky island, surrounded by freezing, rough waters of San Francisco Bay. Even if you got out of your cell, where would you go? But then, June 1962 arrived. 3 men, Frank Morris and brothers John and Clarence Anglin, disappeared into the darkness. They jumped into those dangerous waters and then nothing. No bodies, no evidence, just quiet. Most thought they drowned, just like others who tried before. And for years, that was how the story ended. Until 2013, when the San Francisco police received a strange letter. It began with, "My name is John Anglin. I escaped from Alcatraz in June 1962 with my brother Clarence and Frank Morris." Hold on, could this be true? Was John Anglin really writing years later? The police weren't certain. They kept the letter secret while checking if it was real. But in 2018, the FBI started looking into the case again. Something in that letter caught their interest. Now, let's go back a bit. Alcatraz wasn't just another prison. It was the prison, designed to be impossible to escape. It held America's most dangerous criminals. Al Capone, George Machine Gun Kelly, and other famous convicts all did time there. For almost 30 years, Alcatraz promised one thing: no one breaks out. And many people tried. In those years, 36 men attempted to flee. 23 were captured, 6 were shot dead, 2 drowned, and 2, they just vanished. But in 1962, Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers came up with something new. They had a clever plan, so clever that people still study it today. Frank Morris wasn't just a regular criminal. He was smart, maybe even brilliant. He'd broken out of other prisons before arriving at Alcatraz. Frank had a hard life. He lost both parents when he was just 11 and moved between foster homes. He learned to take care of himself, but without good influences, he turned to crime early. By age 13, he'd been in trouble with the law. But at Alcatraz, Frank wasn't by himself. His cell was near the Anglin brothers and another inmate, Alan West. Being close made planning easier, and they created an escape plan so daring, so detailed, it sounds like a movie plot. But did it work? Did Frank and the Anglins reach freedom that June night in 1962? Or did the Bay waters swallow them? And what about that strange letter in 2013? Was it really John Anglin writing from hiding? Frank Lee Morris wasn't like other bank robbers. Yes, he was a criminal, but he was also smart, a planner. He looked at huge problems, like escaping a prison fortress on a rock surrounded by icy water, and thought, there must be a way. But even clever people can't do everything alone. That's where the Anglin brothers, John and Clarence, entered the picture. These 2 weren't ordinary petty criminals. They were brothers who were almost never apart. Growing up poor with 13 brothers and sisters in Florida, they learned 2 key things early: how to survive and how to stick by each other always. But life was tough on them. Survival became stealing, and stealing led to time behind bars. The Anglin brothers served time at Atlanta Penitentiary. But here's what happened. The Anglins couldn't stand being caged, and they weren't quiet about it. They tried breaking out once, tried again and again. Finally, prison guards gave up and said, "That's it. Ship these troublemakers to the Rock." While Atlanta prison was like a playground, Alcatraz was a stronghold, the last stop. A place where escape wasn't just hard, it couldn't be done. Or that's what everybody believed. Alcatraz wasn't only a prison, it was a workshop. Prisoners worked making furniture, sewing clothes, and producing goods for the U.S. military. The Anglin brothers, Frank Morris and Alan West, understood that this workshop was ideal for escape planning. Why? Materials: wood scraps, tools, paint, and mainly old raincoats. But getting materials wasn't enough. They needed hours, they needed concentration, and they needed cover. And boy, did they manage it. Here's where things get incredible. The team made fake humans to leave in their beds. These weren't simple pillows under covers, not at all. These were masterpieces. They mixed soap, toothpaste, concrete dust, toilet paper, paint from the work area, and real hair swept from the barber shop. Picture this for a moment. These men didn't just organize an escape, they became craftsmen. What they made? Dummies that could trick even the most alert prison guard checking cells at night. When lights went out and guards counted heads, nothing looked wrong. But inside the walls, actual work was taking place. Listen, Alcatraz was getting old. By the early 1960s, age was showing. And aging buildings mean gaps, crumbling, and weak spots. Using spoons from the dining hall and a makeshift drill built from vacuum parts, the team began making holes in their cell walls. Little by little, night after night, they scraped at the stone. But hold on, what about the sound? Wouldn't guards hear them digging at walls? No way. Morris and the Anglins found a brilliant answer. Music hour. Prisoners could have 1 hour of music each day, and one of the escapees played accordion while others worked. The wheezy, humming sound of that instrument covered the drilling and scraping noises from their cells. Honestly, that's genius. The roof and the makeshift raft. After weeks, months of non-stop digging, they did it. They broke through their cell walls and found a hidden maintenance hallway. From there, they climbed pipes and vents to reach the roof. But they weren't finished. They still had to cross San Francisco Bay. And that's where the raincoats proved crucial. More than 50 old raincoats were sewn together to make a homemade raft and life jackets. Picture the patience, determination, and sheer nerve it took to build this in a high-security prison. But here's what worried them. Time was almost up. Every night they worked was risky. One error, one slip, and everything could fail. June 11th, 1962. It's nighttime. The prison is strangely silent, except for soft snoring and occasional metal sounds from deep within. While other prisoners slept, Frank Morris, John Anglin, and Clarence Anglin were fully awake. This was the moment, the night they'd worked toward for months. But as they got ready to leave, something went wrong. Alan West, the fourth escape partner, ran into trouble. His hole wasn't large enough to fit through. He pushed, pulled, kept scraping, but the concrete wouldn't give. Time ran short. The others had to go. With sadness, Frank and the Anglin brothers abandoned Alan. They squeezed into the narrow passage behind their cells, crawling upward through pipes and darkness. Their hearts raced as they climbed the ventilation tunnel toward freedom. At last, they reached the roof. But the escape continued. They dropped 50 feet down a kitchen vent pipe, hanging on tight, hands sweating. Then they climbed over sharp barbed wire, cutting their clothes and skin, but they pressed on. They finally got to the shore. There, Hidden in darkness next to the freezing bay waters, they inflated their raincoat raft with glue. Can you imagine them, cold and soaked, rowing away from Alcatraz with only moonlight and willpower to guide them? By daybreak, the prison burst into panic. Alarms wailed, guards yelled, and the warden looked at the vacant cells in shock. They'd succeeded. They'd truly escaped the rock. But what happened to Alan West? Sorry for the interruption. Before we continue with the story, I kindly ask you to like the video and subscribe to this channel. It is very important for us. Thank you very much. Still trapped in his cell, he had to tell everything. He revealed the complete plan, the path they took, where they were going. He claimed the escapees planned to reach Angel Island to steal a vehicle and separate. Officers rushed to Angel Island, following West's directions, but found nothing. No tracks, no raft, no stolen vehicle. They seemed to have disappeared completely. Now, here's the curious thing. Some think the three guessed West might break and possibly change their route suddenly. Did they go elsewhere? Did they have a backup meeting place? The FBI started one of their biggest searches ever. For 17 years, they checked every clue, every hint, every story. About 1 month later, a Norwegian ship reported seeing a body floating 17 miles from the Golden Gate Bridge. Could it have been one of the escapees? The body was lost. The trail ended, and the mystery remained. Did they live, or did the bay take their lives? On December 31st, 1979, the FBI closed the investigation. Their decision: the men probably drowned, done, papers stored away, and people were left with a puzzle. But mysteries don't just go away, do they? Because sometimes a letter appears. Someone reports a sighting. A rumor spreads about a man in South America or Florida or hiding somewhere, saying he's one of the escapees. Could Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers have achieved the impossible? Could they have fled the unfleeable? Jump to 2013, and the Alcatraz escape mystery got shocking. The San Francisco police received a letter, not just any letter. It was signed by a name that troubled authorities for years: John Anglin. My name is John Anglin. I escaped from Alcatraz in June 1962 with my brother Clarence and Frank Morris. The letter wasn't simply a confession. It was full of information about where John supposedly hid for 50 years. He said he'd lived in Seattle, then North Dakota, and finally Southern California. But the letter also showed something sad. John had cancer. After years of hiding, he was exhausted. He wanted assistance, and he offered a bargain with the FBI. But something seemed strange. Why would someone who completed such a famous prison break stay so near the scene? Why Southern California, just hours from San Francisco? It felt wrong. Police examined the letter carefully but warily. They did investigations, studying handwriting, testing evidence, checking backgrounds, everything. But the final answer was unclear. The letter was believable enough to keep the story alive, but not enough to finish it. And people were left wondering, did John Anglin write this? Did he and his brother, with Frank Morris, truly escape the freezing bay waters? Or was this another false lead? One thing was clear. The 2013 letter brought fresh energy to a tale that keeps going. In 2015, the History Channel showed a documentary that made things more interesting. The Anglin family displayed handwritten Christmas cards supposedly from John and Clarence Anglin through the years. But experts couldn't tell when the cards arrived. Were they genuine or skillful copies? Then came the photo. A family contact said they saw John and Clarence Anglin in Brazil in 1975. They even had a picture of two men resembling the Anglin brothers. But photos can fool you, right? A fuzzy image doesn't prove anything, definitely. Yet the biggest shocker came from Robert Anglin, a cousin of the escapees. On his deathbed, Robert shared something stunning. John and Clarence contacted him in 1963, just 1 year after escaping. Robert said the brothers kept in touch through 1987, when communication ended. What happened? Did they choose to vanish entirely? Or did they stop trusting family? The program didn't solve these mysteries, but it suggested 2 men who might have survived Alcatraz. By 2018, with the strange letter and growing family proof, the FBI reopened the Alcatraz investigation. Experts and handwriting analysts checked the 2013 letter once more. Officers looked at possible escape paths, studied old hints, and tried to find connections. But what did they find? Still no clear answer. The letter was never proven real, and no fresh proof came up to give a final answer. And thus, the great Alcatraz escape stays a puzzle. Did John Anglin write to the FBI years after his breakout? Did he, his brother Clarence, and Frank Morris succeed at the impossible and enjoy free lives? Or did San Francisco Bay's icy waters end their story that night in 1962? Mysteries, questions, and dead ends. When the suspicious 2013 letter supposedly from John Anglin appeared, the FBI acted quickly. They carefully looked at every part of that letter. First, they checked for fingerprints and DNA. Could they find a clue in the paper itself? A smudge of a fingerprint or even a tiny bit of spit on the envelope. Next, they matched the writing in the letter to handwriting samples from Frank Morris, John Anglin, and Clarence Anglin. It seemed like a breakthrough moment. Maybe the real answer was finally at hand. But then the decision came. Not definite enough. No fingerprints, no clear DNA match, and the handwriting, too many differences to know for certain. Local TV station KPIX reported the news, showing the FBI's unclear result, or lack of one. One of their security specialists explained it well. Their final answer leaves everything in doubt, and with that, the letter changed from a possible breakthrough to just another riddle. While the FBI was busy studying the letter, the U.S. Marshals Service, the group officially responsible for catching the escapees, wasn't convinced. In a formal statement, they rejected the letter completely. They were direct about it, too. There is absolutely no reason to believe that any of them would have changed their lifestyle and become completely law-abiding citizens after this escape. In their opinion, professional criminals like Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers wouldn't have just quietly started normal lives, gotten jobs, and begun paying taxes. People don't change that quickly, they claimed. Especially not men who carried out one of the biggest prison escapes in history. But here's where things get interesting. In 2014, scientists did a study using modern computer programs to recreate what happened that crucial June night in 1962. They included water temperature, tide timing, and current speeds to check if surviving was even slightly possible. And what did they find? Amazingly positive. Based on the study, if the 3 men had started their journey at exactly the right moment, particularly during a short time when the currents were moving toward Angel Island, they could have made it. Not simply, not without difficulty, but it wasn't out of reach. The study brought back an idea many had rejected for many years, that Frank Morris, John Anglin, and Clarence Anglin might have actually lived through the unthinkable. Yet even with the proof, even with the explanations, and even with the rare letter or blurry picture, one plain fact stays. We still don't know. Did Frank, John, and Clarence reach their freedom, disappearing into hiding and beginning new lives with new identities? Or did the freezing, merciless waters of the San Francisco Bay drag them down, wiping out their tail in the quiet darkness of the sea? If they lived, where did they end up? How did they get by? And if that 2013 letter truly was from John Anglin, why take the chance of making contact after so many years? The case is still officially ongoing. The U.S. Marshals Service won't end it until they have clear evidence, either dead bodies or living men in custody. But honestly, the chances of either outcome now, more than 60 years later, look very small. The real story about the great Alcatraz escape might always stay one of America's most fascinating puzzles. It's a tale of effort, cleverness, and the lasting human desire for freedom. Whether they died in the ice-cold waters that evening or lived quietly with false names, one thing is certain: they created a legend, and they'll forever make us curious. Did you enjoy this story? Do you think they made it to freedom or not? Let us know in the comments below. If you liked the story, subscribe to this channel and leave a like. No matter the odds, the human spirit will always chase freedom. Thanks so much for listening. See you in the next video. Have a great day.